shared in the following discussion is not intended as medical advice or for diagnostic purposes. Please seek professional assistance if you're experiencing any psychological or physical challenges. Welcome to Solutions for Life on the Couch with Claudette, psychologist and functional medicine certified health coach, bringing you conversations of hope, healing, and transformation. Hi everybody, welcome to our On the Couch chat today. I'm just getting Hayley on so that we can start our conversation, our interesting one today, where we're going to be discussing what you can do as a person to increase your immune system and protect yourself in terms of COVID risk. And so we're going to get going just now. And here we have Hayley. Hi.
Is everything okay?
Good. So we managed to sort our technology out and we're here. Thanks for making time to chat on this topic. I think it's so current and it's so necessary for us all to be equipped with this information.
Yes.
Because going on more than a year now, we're still faced with the same challenges in terms of COVID risk, and also understanding, that we can do things not just to minimize our risk of contracting the virus, but also helping us endure the virus if we do contract it in a much more positive way. And also that what we can do with our nutrition also affects the course of getting infected and the consequences of what we might face if we are. So can you just start by giving us a little bit of an intro into yourself and what you do, so people who haven't met you before understand that before we dive into our conversation?
So I'm a nutritionist. I use a machine called the Best Machine, which is my little tool that I use to work with people, and we're just basically trying to activate their healing potential. We're trying to get them as healthy as possible. That's the way I look at it. So quite different, I suppose, to a traditional medical approach, which is looking at symptoms and treating each symptom individually. We are trying to work out why those symptoms are coming up, and that sort of functional medicine approach, which I know you've really specialized in and embraced, but it's trying to get the person healthy as possible from the inside out, and the symptoms tend to go away. And COVID is an interesting one, like any serious viral infection, because it throws so many challenges, and you have all these different symptoms that are thrown at you, but they have this underlying kind of this sort of inflammation and this oxidative stress and things which affect different people in different ways. But actually getting to the root cause and looking at what's actually going wrong functionally in the body can really minimize the risks, like you say, firstly of contracting it severely, but also if you do have it, how you actually prevent it going into that long haul COVID. And we still don't really know how long the antibodies last for, and if we might get another strain in the future. So it's not something that's going to go away.
Absolutely. So we do need to equip ourselves with as much information as you can, and empower ourselves with what we can do.
I think that's really important, because that's the thing. You can sit back and be passive and just wait and hope that you don't get infected, and maybe pop some vitamin C and zinc and try and move outside sometimes, but that's actually not always enough to minimize those problems. So there's a lot more that we can actually be proactive in doing. So
So you mentioned some big words just now that people might not be familiar with, or they might not quite understand what those are, what they mean. The two words that you mentioned were inflammation and oxidative stress. So can you explain, can we start with inflammation? Could you explain a little bit about what is inflammation, and how what we do with our nutrition, our choices, impact the state of inflammation and oxidative stress?
So I think that's actually something where we've really seen COVID has attacked. We've got this sort of uncontrolled inflammation a lot of the time. So that so-called cytokine storm, where the body literally goes into that sort of attack mode. And the virus is obviously, quite damaging, but actually the way the immune system responds and doesn't switch off is what's causing a lot of long-term complications. And basically the latest research we're looking at is that the virus actually, it affects an enzyme which controls inflammation, it controls the way our immune system, responds. And so we have this huge surge of white blood cells, which are just kind of causing massive amounts of damage to the vascular system. So some people genetically tend to have more inflammation than others. Some people tend to have more of the oxidative stress, which we can talk a little bit more about. But environmental factors and lifestyle and diet have a massive impact on turning those genetic predispositions off, silencing those genes, but also actually cutting that cytokine storm. So when we talk about inflammation, the way we often see inflammation in current diseases is things like diabetes or heart disease, where there's huge amounts of inflammation going on in the person's body, and it's affecting their metabolism, it's affecting their mitochondria, it's affecting overall their health. And there's lots of different diets out there, and I always think, and I say to people, that there isn't necessarily one size fits all when it comes to diet. But with regards to COVID, I think the low-inflammatory Mediterranean-style diet really does make a huge difference. So the sort of things, if we want to go into detail about what I'm talking about there, are plenty of fruits and veggies, eating a rainbow of colors every day. So your purples, your greens, your orange, just trying to, and not obviously Smarties and Skittles and things like that, getting your rainbow of colors through your veggies and your fruits. And I think for people that have COVID, actually literally aiming to try to get 7 to 12 servings a day of fruit and vegetables really help. So stir fries and smoothies and whatever it takes, just try
fruits and salads and
absolutely raw foods, absolutely brilliant. And just trying to get as much as possible. And then obviously there's the sort of anti-inflammatory fats, which we all know, your avocados, your nuts, your seeds, all really helpful. Your fatty fish, if you eat meat, your grass-fed lamb and beef, all of that also helps to reduce the inflammation in your body. But you're actually just wanting to, like I said, that Mediterranean-style diet, olives, olive oil, clean protein. Just don't stress your system with putting in extra toxins. You just want to make it as easy for your immune system to work as possible.
So if we could just take a step back, I think what I've discovered with a lot of people that I work with is that many people don't realize just how inflamed or just under how much stress their bodies are already. So, what is putting them at risk already. And so I think, we used to understanding the concept of inflammation in the sense of you stub your toe against a piece of your furniture and then it gets red and bruised for a little while. And then we can see that because we can see that our body is doing something to kind of repair the injury. And so it's puffing up and, that's our kind of idea of what inflammation is. But I think many of us don't realize that that's going on inside of our bodies too by what we're doing with our lifestyle choices. And it's not as visible because there's nothing on the outside necessarily, but there are things we're doing already that's putting us at risk of this reduced system that's going to find it hard to fight off any viral infection. So can you chat a little bit more about, because I know you started talking already about some great things that we can do going forward.
Sure.
What are we doing in our day-to-day nutrition that's kind of standard that most people don't really realize is actually causing this internal inflammation?
So I think if you look at, they call it the standard American diet, and actually a lot of South Africans still eat like that. Actually looking at the amount of refined, processed carbs, seed oils, and the amount of grains that people eat. So all of those can be hugely inflammatory. So yeah, trying to cut down on just if you are going to eat grains, we can talk a little bit more about that, but actually making sure that the grains that you're eating are the ones that are going to actually fuel the good bacteria in the gut that are going to actually, again, reduce the inflammation. But if you're eating white bread and cakes and biscuits and fried foods and, you know, your sort of average takeaway where they're using really poor quality seed oils and lots of carbs and lots of sugars, the chances are your insulin and your glucose is going up and down, and you've got all this inflammation going on. And yeah, and that's I think a lot of the problem. You know, we've seen obviously the second wave. There was a huge amount of really poor outcomes in South Africa. And one of my clients actually made a really interesting point to me when we chatted about it, because she got COVID in January, but she had it pretty mildly, and she's fine now. She was quite asymptomatic. She's Indian lady in her late 50s. When she first came to me about 3 years ago, she's always eaten quite healthily. She exercises a bit. She had no idea she was diabetic. So we did all those sort of in-depth, you know, we looked at her insulin, we did all the fasting tests, and actually it came back that she was diabetic. So we worked really hard to reverse that. And she said to me, she's convinced that if we hadn't actually done all of that, she would have had a much worse outcome. So really getting to know your body, actually, yeah, and what you think might be a healthy diet maybe isn't right for you. Like I said, that basic Mediterranean style diet for most people really can help to activate your immune system. So yeah.
Awesome. So when you were talking about getting your colors in, and you know the types of fruit and vegetable that you were talking about, what actually is the importance of that? You know, why is it important to eat more fruit and to increase the amount of veggies that we are? So for people who are hearing us and saying, okay, I realize that I've been focusing on all of these foods that could be actually putting me at risk and might be already compromising my immune system, making me more vulnerable. What would be the point of them, you know, now realizing, okay, I need to increase vegetables. I need to look at the colors of my fruit that I'm eating. What is the benefit of those types of foods in our diet?
Yeah, so there's so many benefits. I mean, the antioxidant support that you get from them, which protects us from inflammation, protects us from the aging effects that you know, that everything around us, that our environment has in our body. You obviously get all of those phytonutrients in the plants, which help to do that. But they also provide a lot of fiber, and I'm sure we are going to talk a little bit more about the gut, but if we're looking at nurturing our gut health, we're wanting to get that fiber, which provides food for all the good bacteria in the gut. It helps to sort of sweep out all the stuff that we don't want. You know, it keeps our stools nice and bulky, so there's also that benefit as well. I'm not big into like superfoods, like you've got to eat this particular food every day. I think eating what's in season and trying to get a variety of good quality fruit and veggies. Obviously, if you can try and get the pesticide, you know, sort of low in pesticides, the organic, that would be ideal. But we don't actually have a lot of options in South Africa. So I think for us, just trying to buy what's in season, trying to eat a variety of those fruit and veggies will give us a lot of those phytonutrient benefits. And each of the different colors do have different benefits. You know, if you're looking at your green leafy veggies, they're supporting your detoxification pathways in your liver. If you're looking at your purple veggies, so good for your vascular system. Orange, you know, the orange, brightly colored orange, your sweet potato and your butternut and your carrots, and all of those are also really, really good for the respiratory system and generally for our immune system. So I think my general advice is just get that rainbow in there, and you're going to be covering all your bases.
So, I mean, I know that some people try to, or they might out of habit or routine, be used to certain types of vegetables only, just because it's what you're familiar with, or what you habitually do in your home or with your meals. So you're suggesting that people actually start to become a little bit more conscious now and a little bit more aware.
You're a bit more adventurous with your veggies.
Absolutely. That each color is going to contribute something to the nutrition that we need. It's going to contribute something additional to what our body requires in order to be at its best to be able to fight off and to be mentally strong. So perhaps,
definitely.
So perhaps us kind of
people
starting to
eat their, it's that I still often see it. People that have been, with a, I don't know, personal trainer or whatever at the gym, and they're told you've got to eat broccoli every day, you've got to eat chicken, you've got to eat rice. That's what they eat every single day, and they're going to be massively nutritionally deficient and a whole lot of other things. So get that variety in there. Try and choose different options.
So unless a person knows specifically that they have a sensitivity to a certain food, I think highlighting that it's so important for us not to leave out anything, because we're compromising the benefits of to get all of the very
I think if we're talking about your sort of fruit and veggies, I think when we start to look at your carbs and things like that, we need to be a little bit more selective about what's actually going to heal our body and not harm it. So I just know that there's some people that sometimes don't do well on certain types of vegetables, like nightshade. Like for me, for example, I can't eat tomatoes, and I'm wary. Like, I love having more sweet potato, but I have to really moderate my potato intake. And then those people that struggle a little bit with, the histamines and, those kind of fruit as well. So it has to be personalized. Absolutely. We're talking quite generally, but the nightshade vegetables, for example, can cause massive inflammation in certain people. So there you're saying, brinjals, brilliant purple vegetables, but actually I don't tolerate nightshade very well. I never have done since I was a child. So well, especially the sort of the brinjals, I think I actually do have a proper allergy to them. But so you have to take a bit of an individualized approach when it comes to food intolerances, especially. Because
but our goal is think across the rainbow, try and be more adventurous, look at what you do in your home, and if you're tending to use the same sort of butternut and carrots and beans, not necessarily experimenting with the other colors, like your browns and your mushrooms and across the board.
Mushrooms are an interesting one, actually, because obviously your selenium and your zinc and everything really important, but actually mushrooms are quite a good source of selenium, and especially those foreign mushrooms, the shiitake and the reishi mushrooms, really, really good immune modulators as well. So trying to get as much through our food as possible, absolutely essential. As I said in the beginning, a lot of people, I think, are popping some zinc and thinking that's sorting them out, but there's if you're eating your sort of pumpkin seeds and your zinc, the best source is oysters, which aren't always the most accessible.
A little bit maybe over the budget of the average South African.
Maybe in that case, zinc worth supplementing with. But selenium, Brazil nuts, 4 Brazil nuts gives you a really, really decent amount of selenium every day, and you can throw them in your smoothie, and you can add them to your, oats in the morning, and just try and actually get as much with food as you can do.
Even on your salads. I mean, I found that, throwing extra seeds on my salads really just changes the texture of it and makes it a little bit more interesting.
Definitely. So, just nutrient density. So that's the thing. Everything you eat, you almost want to ask yourself, is this healing my body or is it harming my body? And you just want to try and aim for nutrient density. So if you're going to have a smoothie in the morning, get those seeds in, get your good fats in, whether it's a little bit of coconut oil or even a little sliver of avocado. Just trying to make everything as nutrient dense as possible. And that's how we really feed ourselves.
Sure. I love what you just said now, because even though we're kind of talking about food, even in what you're saying, we're bringing in this additional element of our thought processes and how important it is for us to be conscious and mindful of what we're doing. Because you just asked that question now, you said, let's ask ourselves whether what we're eating is harming us or healing us. I think so often what we're doing on a day-to-day basis with our meals is just habitual, or it's just us being on autopilot mode. We just do, shop, cook, almost kind of like in another zone. We're not stopping to consciously ask these questions. So even though we're talking about food, it really requires us to kind of engage another part of ourselves, which is our thought processes and our awareness, our conscious awareness.
Yes.
Which is which is taking our whole self into consideration. So that's a great point you brought across.
It is. And actually, that mindfulness actually starts when we do our grocery shopping. So actually, I think it's really important. We should never shop when we're hungry because we're going to choose the wrong things to put in the basket. But making sure that when we do go shopping, we actually are thinking about these things. Don't have them in the house. If you're anything like me, I don't have the best willpower. If there's chocolate in the house, I'm probably going to eat it. So just don't have it there. Occasionally a little bit of it's not going to do too much harm, but actually being really mindful about your purchases, and it's actually better for the whole family, to be honest. Just trying to make healthy choices right in the beginning.
So can you talk a little bit more about what you touched on earlier, which was the gut? And I think again, our awareness of what is the gut, I think all of us got this, like, we don't want to have a six-pack hanging out, and that's kind of, not a six-pack. Of course, we all want a six-pack. We don't want to have this cake hanging out. That's our kind of idea of like, oh, I've got a big gut, So that's our identification with it. But, what is the gut, and what is the gut microbiome, and why is it important for immunity? And,
no, exactly. It's something that I talk a lot about. So I think people that know me know that it's something I can talk about for hours. But I do think that good health starts in the gut, actually. You can get everything else right, but if your gut isn't healthy, then you're actually not going to be absorbing, you're not going to be eliminating. You're actually just wasting your money on supplements and everything. So it's something that we really need to focus on. And one of the things which has been quite interesting with COVID is that it seems like one of the effects that it has is it really disrupts the gut microbiome. And what we're talking about when we mention this microbiome is almost like we each have a unique fingerprint of bacteria in our gut, which is unique to us. And we need to nurture the good guys because they have such an important role to play in keeping our immune system modulated, not overreacting, not underreacting, just keeping it working as it should be. So that's what we talk about, our gut microbiome. And I have to be honest, the more I work, the more people I see, I think a lot of people have issues with gut health, and they don't necessarily have a lot of symptoms, but we start to see problems with absorption. We start to see maybe protein deficiency, even though they're eating a lot, magnesium deficiency, whatever it might be, their gut just isn't healthy. So I think the whole thing with COVID, which has been quite interesting, is it actually almost seems to induce something called dysbiosis in the gut. So that leaky gut where you actually have almost like tears in the membrane that surrounds the gastrointestinal tract. And once you've got that going on, again, we're going back to inflammation. Everything that you're potentially eating can be causing huge amounts of inflammation. Your immune system just doesn't know what to do with these big particles of undigested food. So even before we get COVID, I think just making sure that the gut is healthy is important. So, if you've got any bloating, any constipation, diarrhea, reflux, anything like that, actually firstly checking that there aren't any food intolerances, really, really important to sort of remove those from the diet. And then eradicating if you've got any infections. So it might be some parasites, it might be a little bit of a bacterial overgrowth, it might be viruses, it might be yeast overgrowth, but all of those things affect the gut microbiome and they affect our absorption massively. So working with a health practitioner is really the best way to identify and get rid of those for starters. But then looking at, if there's issues with maybe the person isn't producing enough enzymes, the pancreas isn't producing enough enzymes, we may need to supplement a bit with that just to make sure that they really are absorbing properly. It might be that they have quite low levels of stomach acid, which again is quite a common problem. We often hear about people being put on acid blockers, but they have huge effects on our absorption. We actually do need acid in our gut or in our stomach, I should say. And what I often see is that people actually have quite low levels of acid, so they're not really digesting and breaking down their protein, especially very well. So that's something that we can really make a difference with. So the good bacteria, I've mentioned your probiotics. Obviously, there's probiotic supplements, but just in terms of food, again, those fibers, the sort of phytonutrients that we get in the fruits and veggies, all of those things really help to nourish the good bacteria in the gut. And eating fermented foods, which I know it's not for everybody, but actually it's a very, very simple way of actually helping to get that diversity there in the gut. So your sauerkraut or your kombucha or kefir, those sorts of fermented foods are quite easy. Well, I say quite easily available, more easily available than they may have been a few years ago in Durban. But they really can help to improve our resilience to disease. If you aren't dairy intolerant, obviously yogurt is also an option. If you really hate the fermented foods, then getting on a good probiotic can really help to keep your immune system strong. And there is that dysbiosis, that leaky gut. You need to heal it. You need to things like your bone broths, your glutamines, your fish oils, your omega-3s. There's lots of nutrients that are very nourishing for that gut. But it has to be done properly. If you just sort of half-heartedly take a probiotic, you might be missing some other crucial steps. But we've spoken a bit about the sort of fibers, and I think it's something that we really need to make sure we are getting enough fiber. So whether it's your fruit and veggies, your sweet potatoes, all absolutely brilliant sources of fiber. Things like, if you aren't getting enough fiber, even adding things like psyllium husks, which help to again kind of give that stool a little bit of bulk and clean it out. And then things like your fruits, your apples, your seeds, flaxseed, chia seeds, all of those are so good for gut health. Leeks, lentils, what else? When I lived in the UK, we used to get Jerusalem artichokes, which are absolutely brilliant for gut. I never see them in South Africa, so I
also try when I go to the shops to try and keep my eyes out for anything different, and I was so excited to go when I found okra, and I was like, I've never cooked this before, but I'm going to try it, because
how was it?
It was different and unusual, but I think, unfortunately, there's so many things that we don't find here. But I think if we do just start to improve our awareness of what does actually exist, we'll find a lot more than what we think we have access to.
No, all of those things, the fibers, again, I mean, even looking at the sort of inflammatory diseases like the diabetes and the kind of cardiovascular disease, we know that actually eating good fiber helps to nourish the lining of our large intestine. We can make something called short-chain fatty acids, things like butyrate, which really help to, again, keep our immune system strong, and they actually help to avoid things like diabetes or heart disease. So, there's a lot going on with food that we don't really think about, but there's a lot we can do to actually, change our, it's not our destiny, the fact that we may be unhealthy and we may have lots of sort of heart disease and diabetes. Sorry, Kingdit. I think my battery's starting to run down on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not our destiny. We have so much, there's so much that we can actually do to actually activate our health and to change our pathway. So,
Absolutely. So I don't want to lose you, but I wanted us to talk a little bit about the grains. But I hear what you're trying to get across is that the main focus for us with our guts is to make sure we are preserving our good guys, our good bacteria, and not destroying them by what we're doing, and then also preserving our gut lining, so that we're not increasing the burden on our immune system if those tears start to happen, and then there are foreign things that are going into our bloodstream that our immune system will get overburdened by because they're not supposed to be there. So with respect to grains, I wanted to touch on that earlier. What are some of the typical grains that might exist in the South African diet that people need to be aware of could be affecting our gut microbiome?
So the most common one, which I will often, probably 90% of the people that I see, I will actually get them off it for a while, is gluten. And I think it's probably because of the way it's been processed and the way it's grown and the way it's sprayed with glyphosate and everything. But we just know it's a very inflammatory grain. Most people actually feel better off it. Their stomach feels better. They have less bloating. They have less inflammation. So, sometimes it's a simple, it can really make a difference trying to reduce it.
And I think as South Africans, and I'm not sure how it is in the rest of the world, but we kind of have this mindset from advertising and the culture that fiber equals whole wheat bread and fiber equals all brand flicks, because I mean, that's the kind of culture that we've been socialized into. And so, I mean, we really have to change our mindset as to what are the best sources of fiber. And if some of these, like you say, gluten, and are not necessarily going to be the best for us.
No, they really aren't. And I think the temptation sometimes is to go for gluten-free options, but they often do also have quite inflammatory grains as well. So I think if you're okay, if your gut's healthy, sorry, I keep pressing this because I think my battery's a bit low, so it keeps on going dark and I can't see you.
We can still hear you clearly.
I was having issues for anybody who missed it with my computer, trying to get my Instagram thing to work, so I switched to my phone. But anyway, so if you have a relatively robust, healthy digestive system and you tolerate grains okay, then if you're going to have bread, rather go for the sourdough, for example. Just be careful of the really processed grains, and I think, again, it's sort of generalizing, but if you are going to have grains, rather look at maybe rye if you tolerate it okay. Quinoa is it's not actually a grain, it's a seed, but it's an awesome thing you can have instead of couscous in your foods. If you're going to have rice, going for like a brown basmati rice, but the more unrefined ones, that's what we really need to be looking at. Maybe not so much white potato, but trying, again, for the sweet potatoes, which have all those other benefits as well. But I must say I probably am known for the person that takes everybody off gluten. Not absolutely everybody, but if I do let them eat gluten, it will be the sort of sourdoughs and things like that, which I think, again, fermented, they're a little bit easier to digest. But don't stress out your body by giving it things that are going to cause inflammation.
Sure. So I know that you're running low on batteries, so I don't want people to not have some details, just in case they're listening to what you are talking about and saying, I think I need some more specific help to figure out where I'm at and what my next steps need to be for me as a person. Can you give some contact details for yourself? And then I'm going to also share some of the upcoming workshops and information that people can have access to if they want to take this conversation further in terms of applying it in their lives. But do you want to let people know how they can contact you and in which ways could they seek your assistance to go forward?
Yeah, no problem. So I'll put up my details, I think, at the end. I think you've got them already from before, but if people want to contact me, email, WhatsApp, generally the best way to contact me. And the way it normally works if they come to see me is we do a full assessment of their health. We'll look at if they have got any food intolerances. And as I said, we're always sort of asking the question, why are these symptoms coming up, rather than just treating for each symptom, trying to figure out how to actually get them as healthy as possible overall. So I'll give you my details to put up at the end if that's okay.
Perfect. I think it's making changes, and what we've started doing now with this conversation is giving people information, which is a great start. But I think often where people struggle is saying, I have all this information, but I'm not so sure how to go about it. How do I shift my behavior? How do I increase this mindfulness, and how do I change those patterns? And so that's where, seeing Hayley or having a health coach, getting involved in a coaching program.
I was going to say that's where working with you is going to be amazing, because we have a plan, but sometimes people just need a little bit more step-by-step assistance to actually implement it and to stay on the straight and narrow and not to self-sabotage. So I think it's amazing.
So, thanks. I mean, I find it really so fulfilling, and it's so great to be able to see people empowered and to realize that they do have resources inside of them. They do have capability, and once they have information and then they have strategy on how to implement that information, it's kind of such a powerful synergy to impact transformation.
That's the way I like to work as well. I don't like to just sit and tell people what to do, and they need to keep coming back to me so I can keep telling them what to do next. I want them to learn how to look after their own health and how to actually love their body enough to actually nurture it. how they should be eating, how they should be when they do have symptoms, what we need to do to actually resolve those. But I think that is the crux of how I like to work, is actually empowering people to look after their own health. If I don't have to see them that often, it means hopefully I'm doing a good job and they've actually learned how to kind of keep themselves healthy. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add about, you had mentioned earlier about omegas. I'm worried that you're running your own battery, but I want to get as much information from you as we can while you're still on.
Yes.
So you can oils and what's inflammatory and what's non-inflammatory, and the fatty fish. Can you talk a little bit about improving our awareness of omega-3 and omega-6 and what to look out for there in terms of inflammation?
Yeah. So I think the statistic is the standard American diet, which is very high in grains and wheat and seed oils and so on, and processed foods. You're looking at a ratio of probably 1 part omega-3 to about 20 parts omega-6 because of all of those inflammatory oils and so on. But optimally, we should be aiming for 1 part omega-3 to 3 parts omega-6. So it's really trying to switch that balance. So yes, reducing those inflammatory grains really does help a lot. Making sure you're eating your fish at least twice a week would be awesome if you can, even if it is a bit of sushi sometimes, just salmon, smoked salmon. I know it's expensive in South Africa, but it really can help to get that inflammation down really well. Your seeds, your nuts. I've mentioned the grass-fed lamb and beef, and the reason, actually, it's quite interesting, but the grass that they're eating is actually quite rich in omega-3s. So, you tend to get a much less inflammatory meat from like a grass-reared beef than you do from chicken, for example, where they're eating seeds. And so people that eat a lot of chicken tend to actually get a little bit inflamed as well from their food. So switching a little bit, I think, is really, really important. And if you're not going to get enough, omega-3 supplement is an option as well.
And if it's a person who tends to stay away from meats and is following a more vegetarian or a vegan diet by choice, how are they trying to incorporate more of the omega-3s in their diet?
So, again, if you are looking at supplements, there are some quite good vegan-friendly omega-3 supplements that are algae-based. It can be a little bit hard, like flaxseed, and that isn't a very sort of well kind of utilized form of omega-3. But generally the seeds and the nuts, not the processed seeds, but I'm talking about like your flaxseed, chia seed, those sorts of things are a better source. But it can be a little bit challenging. Vegan diets there's something that you have to work quite closely with the person to make sure that they don't end up with nutritional deficiencies.
So you would also suggest if somebody hasn't really been having a variety of meats in their diet, that maybe, looking at themselves and getting an overall assessment might also be a good starting off place for them to see if there are any recipes or
something it's something that a lot of people, and obviously for ethical, spiritual reasons, whatever it might be, it's there are some benefits, I think, especially if you're eating less processed and more plant-based, but you have to be really mindful of potentially having nutritional deficiencies. So that's something that I work quite closely with a lot of people on, looking at their iron, their B12, making sure they're getting enough protein, making sure that their minerals are, that they've got enough minerals in their diet. So it's something that it can be done, but it's sometimes it requires a little bit more hard work than just having a piece of fish a couple of times a week. You have to be quite conscious of getting those other options into your diet.
So we've covered tackling inflammation in terms of, what's happening in our regular diets that's contributing to inflammation and what we can do to minimize that. We've talked about this oxidative stress and how to protect your gut microbiome, which ways in which the gut microbiome can be affected and its potency be reduced, and the damage that can actually happen. And I think you've done well to help us be mindful of the spectrum of fruit and vegetable and getting our colors in, and all of the antioxidants and phytonutrients that come from that, and obviously the increased fiber. And we've discussed the kind of grains and what the impact of them are, and the typical grains that might cause damage to the gut. And obviously, we focused on oils as well. Is there anything else you think from a nutritional point of view, or what's on our plate that we haven't covered, or that maybe you want to highlight? You want to comment on that?
I think those were the main things. I think it's just, like I said right in the beginning, being proactive and actually check that you don't have any of those underlying comorbidities, and just to actually know your body, and just don't sit back and be passive and hope that you don't get sick, because there's so much you can do to minimize the chances. We haven't mentioned the vaccination at all, but actually it's an important point. Even if you are going to have the vaccination, making sure you're healthy before you have the vaccination, because sometimes they also have side effects, but making sure that you've done everything we've spoken about today actually can also minimize those side effects. We're not going to go into detail on the vaccine, because I know you're covering that with somebody else, but make sure that you are, you're healthy, that you are less likely to have a potential side effect. I think is really, really important. Yeah. So
the only last question I have, I often think that, yes, we can have all this good food. What about how we're cooking the food? How much of a role does that play in what ends up landing on our plate, and how beneficial that is for it? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. So I think it definitely has a huge effect, and again on how much it actually brings out certain nutrients, how you're cooking it, how you might be killing off certain nutrients. So I think generally I steam a lot of veggies. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's pausing again.
We heard you up until steaming the veggies. We heard you up until steaming the veggies.
Making sure that that they're nice and sort of still brightly coloured. You don't want to cook them to death, because then you lose a lot of the sort of the vitamins and so on that'll get killed off by them. Or stir frying, if you've got just using a good quality, preferably stainless steel, is better to stir fry. I like roasting veggies. It's probably not the healthiest, but I just like them. I love roasted sweet potato and butternut and a bit of broccoli, cauliflower, all of those things. And again, it's just as a working mum, it's easy. So I do that quite a lot. I personally don't microwave food, because I actually think it kills off a lot of the nutrients, and I don't really like having nuked food. So that for me is something that I avoid. And I try to not overcook and burn and char the food, because again, going back to that oxidative stress, that like rust that we get in our arteries from oxidative stress, we know that the burnt sort of bride meat and so on is particularly bad for increasing oxidative stress. So so that's what I do personally. I don't really fry. I don't like fried food actually, but if I might pan fry something occasionally. But I definitely don't sort of deep fry or anything like that.
And would you suggest that we try and balance out cooked vegetables versus raw vegetables, and how important is that?
Yeah, well, again, it depends on the person, how robust their gut is. Some people, if their gut is really not great, they battle a lot with raw foods. But generally, it's the best way to get our energy is through raw foods, through salads. So ideally, yes, a good proportion of raw foods, your salads, your just trying to, even if it's grating a little bit of beetroot over, I don't know, whatever you're eating, but just trying to get some raw foods in is a really good idea. Some foods actually, interestingly, are better slightly cooked. So your cruciferous veggies, your broccolis, and your cauliflower, it actually is better to steam them for, I think there was a study done optimally, I think it was 1.5 minutes. Just
1.5 minutes.
Broccoli turns bright green. That's when you get the optimal amounts of nutrition that you can actually break down. And they're just much easier to digest. So again, I think I sort of listen to my body. If I feel like salad, I'll have salad. If I really feel like something cooked, then I'll do that. But generally I think a combination of them is a good idea.
And I read an interesting article, and I think there's so much that's been written about this as well, just in terms of what we were talking about earlier, with just being more mindful with our eating, how important it is to actually chew your food because so much of the digestion is also starting to happen in your mouth already before it gets down into your gut.
Absolutely.
So
the enzymes that start activating in your saliva, and it also signals to your stomach to produce acid. So I think that goes back to the mindfulness that you mentioned earlier. Not trying to eat while you're watching TV or doing other things, but actually concentrating on chewing your food properly, tasting it, seeing how you feel. Do you really need to eat that much more? Are you full? Just actually being mindful, I think, is an important part of that. But most people, again, eat their food too quickly. They don't chew it enough. They just put a lot of extra stress on their stomach and their intestines to break down food. But good point.
So for us to kind of be aware that process is already starting when food gets past our teeth,
Exactly. Even when you smell the food, you're starting salivating and everything. It's starting that process of digestion. Make it as easy as possible for your poor body. It's got enough stuff thrown at it. You want to make life as easy as possible.
Because if we're going to go down this route of making the effort and starting to, make better choices, then we want to make sure that the food that we actually are purchasing and, we're making the effort with is actually cooked properly, and we're doing the correct things in our eating practices for them.
As
well, ensure that we get the best out of absorbing and benefiting from it. So, it's been so incredible chatting. I think for me, over the last few years, I've really, really become more and more aware about that food has so many roles, that it's medicine for our body, it's the fuel for our body, that it's, the very thing that gives our body certain information that our body's going to actually respond well to that information, or it's going to take that information and it's going to cause some kind of, adverse reactions or response. There's so many roles that food plays for us, and becoming more and more aware of that is so integral. And like you pointed out, our concern is not whether people's going to take the vaccine or not take the vaccine, but then realizing that there's so much more you can do to empower yourself, whether you do or you don't, to reduce the risk. And if you do contract the virus, to impact the course of how that affects you and the consequences thereafter as well. So thank you so much for your time and for all of the information, the valuable input and suggestions you've shared. And I know that people do have on the advert that we posted for our live chat, there's Hayley's website information there. You want to just shout out the contact number where people get hold of you?
No problem. So my number's 084-817-0795, and as I said, normally when I'm working, my phone's on silent, so just actually sending me a WhatsApp or a message or a voice note is usually the best way to make an appointment. That's absolutely perfect.
Thank you so much for your time, Hayley. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when future videos like these become available. I hope that you found today's conversation beneficial. If you require any psychological or health coaching assistance, you can make contact with Solutions for Life using any of the links in the post description. As you continue on the rest of your day, reflect on the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson. What lies behind you and before you pales in comparison to what lies within you. Take care until next time.